a former PSG commander from the Armed Forces of the Philippines, to Director Humay, our partner from the PDEA, to Mayor Kapael, and to our fellow workers in the government, our friends and partners from the media, from the private sector, good evening once again. On behalf of our Secretary Martin Andanar, who is on an official business with the President in China tonight, I will be reading his speech, and maybe later I will give some inputs as well coming from the speech of Ms. Miriam. So if you may allow me to read the speech of the Secretary. Let me retrace the Odyssey of Homer, written over 2,000 years ago, as the earliest narrative of a voyage without borders. The stories contained in that epic represent confrontations with powerful forces. But every challenge was a victory. There were no limits, no boundaries. There was only strength of character, purity of heart, and the power of good over evil. As journalists, the writing landscape should be without borders. This means that professional journalism breaks down the barriers of political pressure, that the peripheral edges of editorial controls are crossed over, that effective writing or narration move away from the margins drawn by vested interests. To be without borders also means that information dissemination goes beyond the confines of the desk and the newsroom and proceeds into the unknown and unreachable segments of a community. To be without borders also means to be free from the blockades of fake news and fabricated stories, openly peddled nowadays in social media. To be without borders is to be professionally disciplined in thoughts, in words, and in deeds. And let us not be limited to the geographical borders of terrestrial territories, such that your local comfort zone of reporting simply extends to other specific areas in Region A. The spread of ideas, of innovation, of interaction, and of inspiration are likewise without borders. I am positive you have taken these to heart with the definition of the media without borders that you have chosen. We commend your strong membership and congratulate today's recipients of awards in excellence, who have given life to the meaning and substance to information and the freedom of the press. Read Homer's Odyssey, which I mentioned at the start of the speech, and be inspired by the message. Every encounter of Odysseus is like every challenge that you will meet along your journey in order to be free and independent of malevolent control, in order to be without borders. Ultimately, there are tests of character, temptations against time-honored moral values, trials facing the power of the truth, and battles confronting the strength of your mind, heart, and soul. Do not be weary, always be relevant. Now, if I may add, based on the speech of Ms. Miriam a while ago, she mentioned about facts, facts, facts alone, and that is the foundation of integrity, of strength of anyone. And I think that is clearly vital nowadays. post-Marcos, since 1980, can we lower down the volume, the background music? I can't hear myself, sorry. Since 1986, I think, we haven't seen, I'll be very candid, we haven't seen a government this maligned by different sectors or from certain sectors of society. And those attacks being hurled upon the President, upon the cabinet members, upon the armed forces of the Philippines, upon the Philippine National Police, upon the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency, and various officials and agencies of the executive branch have been peddled by what? We all know that. I don't call it fake news. I think alternative truths. Because fake news is very hard to define. It was a creation of some politicians, right? But the peddling of alternative truths have led to confusion and perhaps, to some extent, nowadays, racism and xenophobia against our neighbors, against the Chinese, against foreigners, and it has brought upon a false sense of nationalism brought about by misplaced nationalism as well. So, the attorney a while ago mentioned that the role of the fourth estate is to inform, right? But can we add one more step? I think beyond informing our people, we might have to explain to our people. Because there are four kinds of people, at least us in the PCOO, given the challenges we've faced the past 3 years, the past 34 months since the President took office. We're talking, and I think in my previous career in the private sector, I think it's also the same in media and in the law enforcement side. You're talking to four kinds of people alone, regardless of their gender, their race, their religion, their socio-economic status in life. First, these are the people who are informed. Right? Talk to them. We engage with them. Second, people who are informed but misinformed. Okay. Who are these people? These are people who openly share skewed facts on Facebook, on Twitter, who would talk about things all night long over cases of pale Pilsen or a bottle of Johnny Walker, and talk about things and put their opinions and ideas and misconstruing what is factual. Third, these people who are informed yet would refuse to understand. And this is very political already. Because no matter how much we explain, no matter how much we ferret out their lies and give out the truth, they will refuse to understand. They will always say, we are wrong, we are liars, we are fake. But as servants in media, in the government, in the private sector, we will not stop engaging because that is our role. Right? Our role is to inform and to educate and to make people understand. Because information alone, it goes both ways. Information, if not done responsibly, can be very dangerous. It can be very dangerous. It is similar to freedom, because if we are not responsible enough with our own freedoms, walang mangyayari sa atin eh. Di ba? It can be anarchy. Right? So going back to information, In the government today, we've been here for 3 years. Gerald Dagoy has been the right-hand man of the President. We've seen a lot of changes the past 33 months. Tough decisions have been made. The long arm of the law has been extended to those who refuse to follow the law. Democratic processes, constitutional rights have been respected. Yet you've never heard anything from this government. There were issues thrown at us, and there may be legal issues with certain members of media or certain members of certain industries, but those are all within the legal bounds of what is allowed by the Constitution. So going back to those three kinds of people we deal with: the informed but misinformed, the informed but refuses to understand. Why do we continue? Because as you said, there are no borders, and we shouldn't stop. We shouldn't stop talking, we shouldn't stop speaking, and we shouldn't stop educating our people. And most importantly, we should not stop engaging. Because once we stop engaging, that's the time we become disenchanted and disengaged. That has been the problem of the government for the longest time. For 30 years, people felt the apathy. People felt that the government was not connected to you, to me, to us. We would only hear our leaders speak during the State of the Nation addresses, during elections, or during formal dinners in Shangri-La or Intercon. But now, under the Duterte leadership, the President has been the most visible leader in our history, giving almost 3 speeches, almost 7 days a week. And that is content that you can use, and we ask and request, hopefully, that the basis for the content will be verified, fact-checked all the time, because the responsibility lies with our friends from the media to help us convey the good news of the Republic of the Philippines today. So again, congratulations to Ms. Miriam, congratulations to your board of directors, to the guests, and to the awardees. Maraming salamat po, and patuloy tayong maging partner for change ng ating Pangulo para sa ikakaganda ng Pilipinas. Maraming salamat.
Thank you very much. Once again, a round of applause please for Assistant Secretary Ramon L. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
And so the time has now come for us to give out our